Oh my God, we're back. We're back, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Legal Debrief with your host, AV. We have had a fun-filled week. We've been watching this trial from day one, guys, and it has been busy. Do me a favor in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat if you can see and hear me. That's why I haven't been able to hear things. Do me a favor, hit the 1 in the chat if you could see and hear me. We're ready to go. I'm super excited for today's conversation. Just had an opportunity to chat with Max. All right, I see ones. Look at all the ones. Look at all the ones. Perfect. Guess what, guys? The audio engineers fixed the audio. That was such a thing, such a thing. So I'm happy that we finally got it right. All of you guys are in the building, but today is not about me. You guys have been learning about this case. And the interesting thing is we had Doug Weinstein on. We have a special guest today. I'm so excited to talk to him, just so you guys can continue to learn about the legal system and not only what happened in this particular case, but also making sure that you guys take something away from it. So this is your debrief. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the man of the hour. And if you guys can do me a huge favor, I want you to type Max in the chat and give him a proper welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, Max Schardt. Hi, Max. How you doing?
Wonderful. How are you, AV?
I'm good. I'm good. We're so thrilled to have you here. And confession, there were so many skilled attorneys in this case, but on cross-examination and in general, you're my fave. You're my favorite. I think you're a fan favorite. So we are going to talk a little bit. Yeah, we're also going to talk a little bit about cross-examination, those sorts of things, because there's a big community of law students that watch us as well. Cool. Huge fans of Kokomo. Huge fans.
I try to shield. I try to protect Kokomo a little bit from all his fans and all the notoriety. He told me he was going to Miami. And a couple of days ago, and I said, Shaq, don't go to Miami. And then he told me, no, it's this Art Basel. Am I saying it right?
Oh, yes, the museum.
It's some convention, some art thing that I know nothing about. And so I was like, no, Shaq, I don't believe it. Stay out of Miami. Just be chill. Stay in Atlanta. And then my wife, she used to be a defense attorney, and she defended Shaq and said, no, that's really a thing. Let him go to Miami. And I said, okay, Shaq, just be careful, man.
Yeah, that's it.
I know that Shaq's a grown man, but I am very protective of him. And
There we go. It's always good to have mentors, right? And I'm sure you guys have spent so much time together during the duration of this case.
Well, I've known him for 8 years. 9 years.
Wow.
I met him when he was 16 or 17. He interned. I was at the public defender's office, and it was Shaq and 2 other young men, and they interned for the summer. They were in high school, and he went to North Atlanta High School, and that's how I got to know him. And then after the summer was over, he stayed in contact. He attended Georgia State University, which was right by my office, and he'd just stop in, and we always stayed in contact. And then I brought him in. I introduced him to Brian, and we brought him into this case. So that's one of the best things about this case is I'm just proud of Shaq.
Yeah, that's awesome. Please give him our regards. If y'all can do us another favor, type Shaq in the chat and let him know. Like, he's got a ton of fans over here. But I do want to transition because this has been a huge week for you guys. I know Shannon is probably elated. And one of the things I like to do when we bring the attorneys on is to talk a little bit more about your clients and for people to get to know what they don't see in like the law and crime feed, right? Like you guys really got a chance to get to know each other. And look, you guys are like building up the chat. It's moving so fast. So why don't we start there, Max? What was Shannon's immediate reaction to hearing the verdict?
So Shannon is someone I think people would say is like a tough nut to crack is the term that people use. So I've probably got, he's probably opens up to me, I would say, as much as anyone that he sees on a daily basis or a semi-daily basis. And but for him, showing emotion is a big deal.
Mm.
And when we hugged, it was kind of like my knees were very weak, and his body felt like it had no bones in it. So I don't really
Wow.
know how we stayed upright, but that was just a big moment, and I could just feel the tension kind of release out of his body.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Cause it's like, it's so nerve-wracking. Like I remember being
Right,
in law school and getting ready. We participated in like trial team. It is so nerve-wracking to find the end result. And, Angela D. Williams was here recently and she had talked about how like that is nerve-wracking when you're waiting for a result, right?
right.
And the hug between you two was like super moving. How did you feel in that moment?
So I know that there's a lot of people that were following this case that said, "Oh, they'll come back not guilty within a day." That's,
Hmm.
and a lot of people felt that way. I never felt that way. I knew it was a lot of evidence to go through. I knew the jurors were going to be very conscientious and review everything. So I never felt like, oh, this is inevitable that it's going to come out good, or it's inevitable that it will come out bad. And then, of course, I knew we had that one count where I didn't address it in closing, and that was
Hmm.
intentional because I it was what it was,
Right.
and I didn't want to blow my credibility with the jurors arguing something that kind of it was what it was. So we knew we had that, and that carries up to 10 years. So we knew best case scenario, we were going to be facing one conviction that carries up to 10 years. And it was just a matter of just relying on Judge Whitaker to take everything into consideration. And she did that, of course. And we're very thankful for that and for
Hmm.
her willingness to consider that. And so it was just a big relief at that moment.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Because even with, I think it was Tuesday, I'm getting all the days mixed up. There was a day where they came back with several questions that were kind
Right,
of centered on Shannon. We all saw the crazy footage, right? And I think it was a FedEx footage. They had
right,
questions about that.
right.
Questions about some of the lyrics that were used in some of the songs. Did that sway what you thought was going to happen when they came back with those questions?
Once, I was never worried about the video because I
Mhm.
feel strongly about what the video shows. And
Mhm.
and it's not often as a defense attorney where you have a client who's charged based on a video, but at the same time, you're telling the jurors, look at the video.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a very awkward situation,
Mhm.
but because people don't think of a video as, they think of, oh, the video tells the truth, but it told a different truth to different people. But
Yeah.
ultimately, there was one truth, and I felt strong on that. So when they started asking to see the video again and again, I was I was good with that. I said,
Okay.
watch that video as many times, and that's what I told Shaq. Shaq, they wanted to watch it in reverse. I didn't really understand, but Shaq
Yeah.
figured out how to play it in reverse. And I said, Shaq, play it. If you know how to do it and they're asking for it, play it reverse, slow motion, sideways, backwards, forwards, whatever, because we're going to stand by that video. And
Yeah.
so once and then once I realized that Mr. Kendrick Yak had been acquitted, I knew it. We were kind of tied together on
Mhm.
the 2015 case. So I felt once I heard the verdict on Mr. Kendrick, I felt good about the 2015 case.
That
Um,
is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, we were a little worried when we saw the red suits, kind of approaching and closing, and we were like, okay, what's going on here?
right,
But the good thing about this audience is we really understand the importance of like concrete, hardcore evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, and we saw a lot of issues with that. And before we dive deeper into that, Max, tell us a little bit more about you, like in your experience. How has this trial shaped or like reinforced your approach as a defense attorney? Because it is unique, longest case in Georgia history.
Right. It's funny because I did a 6-week case once, which is pretty long for a criminal trial in Superior Court. Maybe not, federal cases sometimes last longer than that. But and in that case, I tried it with David Wolf, who's another renowned attorney in Atlanta. He's friends with Bruce Harvey, and we tried that case. And after like the first week, it started like going quicker in my mind. It's like you run the first mile of the marathon and it kind of like you find your stride. This case never was like that. This case, I always said, okay, it's going to stop grinding and we're going to go smooth. And it just kept grinding every day, every day, every day. So I'm consider myself very fortunate and blessed to have been involved in this case. Would I, like, if someone called today and said, Max, we got this 2+ year case about to start and we want you to be the attorney on it, would I like jump at that opportunity to do it right now again? Probably not.
Right.
Because I have to take care of some other things. But
yeah,
I just feel very fortunate and blessed because the other thing is, when that verdict came back, like there was like random people in the courthouse that I'd never met before in my life.
really.
A lot of African-American men, quite frankly, that I didn't know who they were. Then they weren't anyone famous, just everyday people. And they came up and thanked me. And I could tell it meant something to people beyond Shannon.
Yes. Yep.
And that's just, I mean, what more could you ask for from a profession than that? So
yeah, it's making a difference, and I think as lawyers, like it really does show, once you have a favorable result for your client, but not even that, it's just the justice system doing its job, right? Because we see the issues with it, but that it's possible. And, I think that it did restore some hope in a lot of folks in a sense, because not only did they see effective defense counsel, and we're like pro defense here. So that's the thing. But it's like, people were able to see the things that you guys dealt with day in, day out, right? Speaking of which, strategic decisions, because we've been watching for the last year. And we noticed that, a few weeks ago, the case took a turning point. And that was with Nicole Westmoreland's objection, the famous objection. We had her on that week, and it was fantastic to chat with her. But once that objection and the motion for mistrial came up, the judge was open. And I think we had a motion for mistrial counter, and we were somewhere up around 40.
Right.
And yeah, go ahead.
So Judge Whitaker is very well regarded and renowned, but before she was a judge, she was an appellate attorney with the district attorney's office. So I think she has a good barometer for if there's error that's already occurred in the case. And I think that was always a concern. And, typically if you're the state and that there's error potentially in a case, it might be in their best interest to resolve it via plea, as opposed to going for convictions that are going to be overturned in a couple years. Now, the flip side of that, as a defense attorney, you don't really want to count on an appeal coming through. A, they don't always come through. And then B, with a case this big, transcript this big, we're talking about, it might be 10 years before they actually have their appeals heard. So it was, but she sensed that I believe she sensed that there might be some issues with the case before she took over. And she thought the best way was to resolve it. My job was made very easy through the plea negotiation process because we were the only party, we being myself and Shannon, we were the only party that were just not at all given an offer that we could even consider.
Oh, wow.
It was the numbers were crazy.
Yeah, and we've
So
seen that here with the
yeah,
plea
and so
deals.
that was actually a blessing in some ways because, you know, if you give a good offer, then I have to weigh it and there's all sorts of strategy involved. But if we don't have a good offer, it's just what we're gonna do, we're gonna fight.
Yeah,
It was that simple. Took all the guesswork out of it. We just gonna fight.
yeah.
And that was a big moment because I remember talking in the holding cell with Shannon. I said, "Hey man, it's okay. We're gonna fight." And I know we're both fighters. So
Mhm.
we hugged each other in the holding cell and probably gave ourselves some handshake or something. We just were in unison and we said, "Let's go." So that's
Okay.
how that went. But and then I didn't know who else was gonna enter a plea. But then when the dust cleared, I looked over and there's Doug and Yak, and I said, "Well, I
Mhm.
guess they're in the fight with us." So
Right,
it was
right.
us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because we were looking at the strategic approach of staying, right?
Right,
And what that meant, because I'm sure the jurors were coming back and half of the courtroom is cleared out. Everybody moved up,
right,
like you're at the front of the courtroom. So that was probably noticeable for
right,
them to see that a majority of folks were no longer in the courtroom after a few days of a
right.
break. Now, as you guys came up with the strategy, because obviously it sounds like the deal was not a good one, right? Um, the deal to, or at least the decision to continue. Tell us, dig a little bit deeper into that. Like, what was the core behind that? Did you guys feel confident in the fight and what the state had versus what you know to be true?
I mean, it's easy to say now, "Oh, yeah, we were confident."
Hmm.
But you don't know what the jurors are thinking. I know what
Yes.
I thought about the case,
Right.
okay? I know what I thought about the case. I also know that, throughout the trial, we had the assistance of Trisha Renard, who is, amazing and helped us
Mm.
pick a jury,
Hmm.
and, that's the lady people started calling YSL Granny.
Oh
Um,
no! Did they do
and
that?
yeah, they did. And but and she likes that name. She's
Okay.
like
Good. Good.
and so I knew that the jurors were chosen with care. But you still
Okay.
never know what they're thinking. So, but again, it wasn't much strategy to it, to be honest with you, because we didn't
Hmm.
have any other options.
Right. Right. I think that week was just so surprising because, we're all like, what's going on? Who's in the courtroom? I was about to fly down there. I'm like, what's happening?
Right,
Just because it was so quiet, at least on the public aspect of it. But we know that you guys were in constant negotiations with them. But for Shannon's deal in particular, it sounds like it just was not something that was going to be
right. I
beneficial for
wasn't I
him.
wasn't really in constant negotiations. I mean,
Oh, wow.
what I spent most of that week getting ready to cross-examine people and let's go.
Yes. Yes. Speaking of that, master cross examiner. Favorite moment in the trial, right? So we'll start there, but favorite witness that you enjoyed cross examining.
They're probably the same person.
Okay. Who is it? Who is it? Tell us.
I think people know who it is.
Yeah.
I well, no, let me say this. I thought Woody was interesting.
He was. Yeah.
Um, I That was a cross examination that I had put a lot of time into.
Yes.
Mr. Kokomo put a lot of time into as
Oh,
well.
wow. Okay.
I mean, we had clips all arranged, and Shaq, it's not like he just shows up and presses play. We have to create all those clips.
Wow.
And so he was a big part of that and just making sure he's on the same page as me. But um, I thought that it, I thought that important witnesses were Woody. I
Hmm.
thought Mr. Zachary was an important witness.
That's right.
Um, I thought that Investigator Viverito, that was an important witness to cross-examine. Honestly, I think my favorite now that I think about it, my favorite cross-examination, I think it was Walter Murphy. And
Okay.
and the reason I liked that so much, and you know, some of the jurors may have felt like, oh, well, Max must know Walter Murphy, or they must have rehearsed this or something. We didn't. Like, I know
Hmm.
I've spoken to him before, but I don't know him like that. But
Yeah.
what I liked about that cross-examination in that moment was Walter Murphy had testified for like 2 days, it seemed, and
Yeah.
nothing made sense. None of it made
Mm.
sense. There was nothing, like, the jurors were confused, everyone's confused, and I thought I was able to build a rapport with him, that we were speaking the same language, and then stuff started to make a little bit more sense in front of the jury. And, you know, it wasn't anything great, except he described what happened and how he ended up at the gas station where that other gentleman was shot. And, you
Yeah.
know, there was no making that right. It was a horrible thing. But
Hmm.
you know, I just appreciated the fact that it seemed like we were able to communicate when so many other people were not able to communicate with
Yeah.
him. And it felt good to kind of make that connection with him.
That's
And
awesome. And it's so interesting too, because like with the state's witnesses, there were an exorbitant, like huge amount of them. Right. But we also saw some folks that like did not want to be there, you know,
right,
and, you know, some of them had to oblige by the deals that they had made with the state. You know, we talk about Woody, and a huge shout out to him, because I think one thing that we've learned from his experience is, especially with the ex parte, meaning the transcript, reading what was actually going on line by line, was very enlightening. But what we thought was super impressive about your cross was little Mike and Quez did not exist. And it was, I think when we were watching it that day, I was like listening, and then I was like, hang on, what? Like, that I think was the biggest moment.
and I didn't know that to be a fact, but I had a strong hunch. Just
Wow.
just because, you know, all we get is tapes
Yeah.
um of
Yep.
what was said. And when I looked at that tape, usually, you know, I'm not going to say that I'm going to co-sign all the work by gang detectives, but
Right.
generally speaking, they're going to know people's names.
Hmm.
And they were perplexed, and I was like, "No, that doesn't even
There's
sound
something
right.
not right about
There's
that.
something not right about that."
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, I threw that out there, and that was correct. And that was,
Wow.
I thought that was a big moment, because it showed. And I blame people that put Kenneth Copeland in this situation.
Yes.
I
I
don't
think
blame Kenneth
everybody
Copeland.
agrees. Yeah.
And so, but it just showed, okay, he has the ability to just make things up out of thin air.
Hmm.
And that's really the point
That
that
was
I'm
important
trying
for
to
the jury to see, because
right,
here's what it does. It shines a light on the process of bringing a case to trial, right? The first stage is the
right,
investigation. And I think what it actually did is it showed the lack of accountability, the thoroughness of the investigation that took place 9 years ago.
right,
And it's so funny. I was talking to a friend who works for the FBI, and I was talking to him about this case. And he's just like, we would never move anything forward in the system if there were holes in the investigation like that. Brian was looking for the McDonald's footage. We were like, where's the McDonald's footage?
right,
The notes that were mysteriously gone. Like, it was just like thing after thing. The way that some of the witnesses were handled, poor Munktunk, little D, you know, come like after going
right,
through a medical illness. So, you know, after people just started seeing all of these issues pile up, it's like, all right, what's really going on here behind the scenes, you know?
right. And the cool thing about this case is, you know, the legal community, it's kind of insular, and what happens
Hmm.
in courtrooms is kind of detached from everyday
Yes.
life.
Yep.
So like, I had a client plead guilty today
Hmm.
in a court in another county. And, you know, we all sign these forms. Oh, I'm doing this freely and voluntarily. No one's
Hmm.
coerced me. And we all sign it. And then we all, if someone later says they were coerced, we all put the page up and say, oh, no, you signed this piece of paper that said you weren't coerced. But, you know, my whole point of it was, and I think the public agrees, is like, really, like, you weren't coerced, but you couldn't leave unless you signed it.
Yeah.
And we wrote it, and you got a sick grandmother. I'm talking about Moontung now.
Yep.
You have a sick mother, and you got kids at home, and no one's giving you bond. Like, we can sign a piece of paper and say, okay, I'm not coerced, but all you did is you were coerced into signing a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Coerced. Like, you were
100%.
coerced.
Yeah,
It wasn't,
100%.
and so just taking the way we look at things in the legal community, in the buzzwords that we used, and then putting out in the public and in the jurors and say, you know what, is this really true? Was he really not coerced?
Mm-hmm.
And I that was a cool part about this case, is kind of
really
like
was.
exposing some of that stuff.
Yeah, it was. And Angela, was it Angela? No, Nicole made a really good point when she was here. She was mentioning how sometimes, court of public opinion, like let's go to Law and Crimes chat, and you can see the sentiments of
Right.
what normal everyday people are thinking and feeling about this case, right?
Right.
And then, it's almost comparable to what we think the jury is thinking about
Right.
with this case. And I was really proud and happy to see you bring a lot of that out in cross-examination with some of these defendants, right? Because, like with Mungtung's particular testimony, that was the most striking, because there's a lot of combativeness, there was a lot of screaming, and we were
Right.
like, all right, what's going on here? Some unnecessary behavior, we think, but at the same time, I think it was, and you brought this out on Cross, it was like 1 or 2 clauses. Was it the factual acknowledgments, number 8 or 9?
There was one that I thought was pretty clear. He was having a beef with Mr. Watts over this woman that they both had in common.
Yeah, in Traver, yep.
And then all of a sudden, the state is writing up the factual acknowledgments, and he's doing this on behalf of YSL. And I actually love that, because that just showed, to me, that was like, okay, jurors, you see how far they're reaching right now?
Yeah.
Even with the Christian Eppinger, Christian Eppinger, that was like,
that was brutal.
Like, I'm not gonna justify anything that happened.
Right.
But for them to say, oh, well, he did that in furtherance of YSL, is like, nah, he was getting arrested and he did some crazy mess to escape. What does this have to do with anyone but Christian? But
that was a confusing day.
Right. And to me, that just showed, like, that was a good example in my mind to say, look, y'all, see, they're reaching.
Yes. Yeah. My thing was the Infinity guy that worked at the dealership. That was interesting, because I was just like, it was like towards the end of one of the days, and I was like, okay, thinking of state resources, because as a former Fulton County resident, I wanted to see where my tax dollars were going, right? Like, what witnesses do we have lined up? Are we prepared? Are we going to be effective and clean in trying this case? And when we saw that one, I think me and chat here, we were like, okay, we're a little confused on what's going on, because it just didn't seem like, what do they say? And I think I learned this in constitutional law, like, it didn't have bite. The evidence didn't have bites,
Right.
So it was a little interesting. But Judge Whitaker, like in this case, we've seen some changes in judges. Judge Glanville, Judge Whitaker, right? Chief Judge Glanville. And I believe Judge Ingram was in there for a day or two before she needed.
Judge Ingram never appeared.
Yeah.
She was assigned the case, and then she had a conflict.
Yes, 100%. I think, I remember that. It was like something with a deputy, so it needed to be reassigned. And we saw some huge differences. Doug was here the other day, was talking about how some of those differences were very positive, because we wanted to start looking at some organization and getting through the case faster. I think, Judge Whitaker wanted this to end before the December holiday. Moving on to that, how did the differences between the judges presiding over the case impact the trial process or the outcome?
I don't know how it impacted the outcome.
Okay. Yep.
I can't answer that.
Okay.
I thought that Judge Whitaker did a phenomenal job.
Yes.
Just leave it like that. I'll leave
There
it
we
at
go.
that. And Judge Whitaker did a phenomenal job. And the thing that was frustrating to me in the beginning, you know, I do prepare my cross examinations to make certain points.
Mm-hmm.
And earlier on in the trial, I was not being allowed to get the plane off the runway.
Yeah.
With like vague, objections, vague, and to me, and I kind of lost it once,
Mm-hmm.
because I turned, I think it was Investigator Dennis, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
do you not understand my question?
Oh, yes, I remember that. I remember that.
And that was wrong of me to do in some ways, but at the same time, I was frustrated. But what I realized is when I looked over at the jurors, a bunch of them were smiling like, okay, we feel you. We know you got questions and we know you're not
Yes.
being allowed to ask them.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of want to hear the answers to the questions that you want to ask. So I knew that the jurors were at least viewing what was going on from my perspective.
Yeah. I think I remember that day because he had testified a few times. Was this the day where we were talking about the qualifications of a gang expert and Boys in the Hood?
It
And
may have been. I just
okay.
remember the judge. It was Judge Glanville at the time. He asked the
Okay,
jury
so that was
to
a
leave,
pass
and
one.
then I got that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the audience knows. We did a compilation of some of your best moments, and I think we captured that like interaction because, and so many people agreed with you. Like we should be able to hear the answers to these questions because they're relevant, they're important, and how many cumulative, duplicative experts came up to say almost the same thing. It took so much time. Moving on to the prosecution side, one thing, and this is a little joke that we have here. We like to have fun here. This is my wrap it up box. When there would be very long explanations, we would time them and the wrap it up box would be here. I think one day, one of you had an objection and the response took over like 16 minutes. It was just very long and, no pauses, right? So, we're pro defense here, but there seems to be some inconsistencies between the investigation and how the prosecution presented the case to the jury. And in your view, do you think there was a disconnect between that and how this story was delivered to the jury?
This is what I'm going to say to that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that six clients, defendants were, their cases were dismissed yesterday, or I think
Yes.
six.
Yes.
There's still probably six young men on trial. So out of respect for them, because I'm not going to critique the state at all.
Yeah.
Or because, I'm going to respect them. I don't know everything, so the state may have been doing things right and I might be wrong, first of all. But secondly, to the extent that I could critique them to help them out, I'm not going to do that to the young men that are still on trial.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with them, but I want them to have the best opportunity and their attorneys to have the best opportunity. So I'm just going to stay away from.
No, I love that. That's actually super objective. That's actually super, super objective. And that's the thing. Like sometimes we get criticized for being a little bit too pro defense. I'm pro law. It's like, let's follow the law. Let's follow procedure. Let's get the best outcome if you are, on the prosecution side and getting justice for families, but let's get the right people. Let's do it the right way. Let's have a clean investigation. Whereas on the defense side, we want to expose what really happens day to day in the courtroom. So totally respect your position on that one. Speaking of Kokomo, I want to go back to law students, right? Because there's a ton of law students that watch us on all of the different various podcasts. Like they all pick different places where they like to go. I know I have several that choose this platform. What advice would you give young attorneys aspiring to excel in criminal defense? And Kokomo's a favorite. It's so great to know how close you guys have been. But any advice you have for young law students out there?
So let me just say this. when I went to law school, I didn't know any lawyers. Okay. I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't even know what lawyers did. I was trying to figure it out. And I just, honestly, I don't even really know how I ended up in law school. I'm not particularly smart, but what I am blessed with is I'm good at standardized tests. So
okay. So did you do well on the LSAT?
Right. So that
and the bar.
So I'm standardized tests for whatever reason, multiple choice I'm good at. That doesn't mean I'm smart. That doesn't mean I was a good student, but standardized tests I'm good at. And so I was able to parlay that to get into law school, but I didn't really have a plan.
Gotcha.
When I got to law school, I was at an extreme disadvantage because I didn't know anything about the law, how lawyers act, the day-to-day of being a lawyer, any of that. So I was at a bit of a disadvantage. I'm going to shift it now to this case. This case, I'm getting the flowers, Doug's getting the flowers, Brian's getting the flowers. This case was built on law students' work. Okay.
Wow.
Shaq's not even in law school yet. He's going to be. He was working his behind off.
Wait, so he's not in law school yet?
No, he's going to be next year.
Okay, got it.
So he's in between undergrad and law school. He was working his behind off, getting us our exhibits. We got a young man that's I'm in the office right now. He's in the next room over, Bram Mansback. He's sitting there scouring social media, Twitter accounts, all the police body cam is a big one. All the stuff that I don't want to do that is incredibly
or you might not even have time to do.
Right. But all that's so important. And that was law students that did that. And then tell myself or tell Brian what's important. Haley Haltewangers. And these are all people that sat next to Brian at different points in the trial. She scoured the wiretaps, thousands of phone calls. And jail phone calls. There's nothing more boring for me than to listen to two guys or a guy talk to his girlfriend on the phone 15 minutes at a time. She did all that.
Wow.
Griffin Lale is another. Jack Pines. There's so many, and these are all law students. So my advice to law students is get involved.
Yeah.
Don't be like me because, when I was in law school, I was all about girls and,
there it is.
I mean, that's where I was in life. That's why I'm so protective of Shaq, because I know where I was when I was Shaq's age.
Yeah. Like, don't get distracted. Stay
Right.
focused.
I was very easily distracted. Don't be like me. Get involved. Be like Bram and be like Shaq and be like Haley and get involved, because the stuff they learned in this case, like, they're probably more ready to try a case than people that are going to be graduating this spring and taking a bar exam.
Yes. That was actually my favorite part of law school was trial team, because it's like, it taught us how to think on our toes, do I have it here? I don't. Oh yeah, I do. So one of the things that we did is we competed against other law schools and stuff, and we would have to be defense attorneys, then change it, and then be on the prosecutor side. And, I had one nervous partner. I'll never forget it. He was so petrified, standing, giving an opening statement, so petrified to object. And I was like getting frustrated. I'm like, man, object. And we've got these fun, where's Rico Post-its? Where is Rico? So like, I would like write on the Post-it, I'm like, object 403, like, here's but it is the most practical experience that I find from the entire law school experience was like, here's what being in a courtroom is like. You will be nervous and you got to work through that. But also the research part that you're mentioning, I think goes unnoticed so much.
Well, and that's why I wanted to bring that up, because it really was thousands of hours that law students were doing. And to your point, just look at Shaq. Go back to when this case first started, and someone would say, Judge Glanville would ask Shaq a question, or can you do this? Shaq would go, and you'll see me if the videos I make, I say, Shaq, open your mouth, answer the question. Stop being scared. And I
The
was busting him.
training.
But by the end of the trial, he's standing up, chest out.
Yep.
Yes, Your Honor.
Confident.
Confidently walking up there. And so that's what I'm talking about.
There we go. There we go. You guys heard it. The law students that are watching, you guys heard it. Almost 4,000 people in here. If y'all could type law students in the chat, that would be fantastic. Let's keep them motivated. I do want to transition back to trial strategy for a second.
Mm-hmm.
If you can think about the top lesson you learned in preparing for this trial, especially it's the longest one in Georgia history, what did you learn?
It's a very simple answer. Nothing replaces hard work. That's it.
Wow. Okay.
It's not about the suit you wear. It's not about, there's attorneys that are way, way more eloquent than me.
Mm-hmm.
I work with Brian. I'm close friends with Brian. We talk multiple times a day.
That's awesome.
And so the stuff all the things that we were able to rebut that everyone's like, yeah, it seems obvious now. That's the stuff that they're used to getting away with. A gang investigator says, oh yeah, this album cover was interesting to me because it shows this and it shows a bird skull and a snake, so it means that the gang war is starting. That's what they sold it as. Or 24M on an end's head is putting money on someone's head. And no one, if you're not prepared and if you haven't done the work, that stuff flies by and it's not challenged. But if you've done the work and you have that in your pocket and you say, you know what, if they try to say this, then I got this YouTube clip of Lil Uzi Vert with the diamond in his head. And so,
okay.
or I know that this album cover is a collaboration with Future, and I know Free Bands and it's the Eagle, and I know that. And there was stuff like that throughout this case, a lot of instances of that where we were able to come back with a retort to what they were trying to push, a narrative they were trying to push. But you can't do that if you don't do the work. And I was a public defender for a long time, and I always said to myself, I'm going to provide $1 million defense, even if the person's not paying for it. But I will say, this case, just being around Brian, we took it to another level. And when I say we, I'm talking the whole team. And so there's all that's grounded in work, though. It's not all the fancy stuff and the marketing on Instagram that I'm the best lawyer in the world and look at this and look at me. It's all about being in the office doing the work. So
yeah. And what I loved about what you just mentioned is anticipating what the next move will be before it happens. So in that preparation, like, okay, what are the possible outcomes? And I think, people like us that have been through law school and have that strategic mindset, you almost have to do it, right? Where it's just like, okay, here's one outcome. Here's the second outcome. What can the outcome be from this question that I'm going to ask? What could the answer be?
You are so spot on with that. And it's almost like a Choose Your Own Adventure book. Remember those when you were a kid?
Yes. Yeah.
And so I'm always thinking about that. And, Brian, I know he's always thinking about that. And then, I know that the viewing public wants us to they wanted me to, play that tape in front of Hogan 100 times. Right. Yep. And they were like, Max, why didn't you, does Max even see this? Does Max?
God bless Twitter.
Right. But to be an effective advocate, you gotta know what you have in your pocket. You have to know when you want to play it, who is on the stand when you want to play it, how you want to play it.
Yep.
But again, all that ultimately boils down to his preparation on the front end. Right. It's not really what's going on in court. It's what happened over those weekends and those long nights.
Yeah, 100% preparation. So I think that's such a valuable lesson and a valuable takeaway. And as we're thinking about that preparation, the other thing that came up and I think made a big difference in this case, and at least public attention, was the fact that it was televised. Do you think the trial being televised helped the impact of the outcome based off of public perception? Did it help at all?
So the public perception helped it all, and the public perception was a result. The public perception helped. The public perception was a result of the television cameras. So that's how I look at it. And I can't say, and I've said this on other formats, I can't say like, oh, because the public was behind us. Like, I'm not saying that the jurors saw that. There's nothing tangible, but when you feel that the public's behind you, there's no position that I like to be in more than being the underdog, but also being like the people's champ. And we all felt like, you know what, we're the people's champ right now.
Yeah.
So let's do this. And I can't say tangibly how that affected it, but I know it kept me going. It kept me going.
Wow. Okay.
So that was a big difference in the case. Because if everyone was saying, you know, why are we wasting our time with this case? Just lock up all those guys. Yada, yada. It would have been different. But that's not the way the public reacted.
That's right. They totally didn't. We talked a little bit about plea deals and how some of them have been highly controversial. In your opinion, do they help or hinder overall defense strategy? And I think you kind of answered this one, but just want to touch on that one again.
You're talking about the plea deals with the people that ended up testifying, or the plea deals towards the end of the...
Let's go to testifying. I don't think we talked about that in a deeper way.
The testifying, I'll answer both. Testifying was, I thought it was pretty obvious when you have the factual acknowledgments on the letterhead of the state, and they're the ones that wrote the factual acknowledgments, and it has words in there that some of the people that signed it don't even, know what the word means.
Yeah.
I thought that was an opportunity to relate to the jurors and say, okay, what is this really worth? And was it shoved down people's throats? So I didn't mind the factual acknowledgments because, at some point they became our sword. Like, look at what they're trying to, it's no longer what did they say, it's what did they force him to say to try to make their case against my client. And that's kind of, it became our weapon. Now the pleas later on, when Jeffrey and Mr. Huey and Nichols pled, and others, Lerod, that had a big impact in a way that probably people don't realize. Everyone's wondering, what will the jurors see and how will they react to that? I wasn't so much worried about that. I assumed that they would assume they pled, but I trusted the jurors not to hold that against us. In fact, I kind of thought the jurors might respect us more for standing up. But what it really did is it took away good lawyers from the defense side. So, I'm looking for Brian because I want to bounce an idea, and Brian's not there anymore.
So it's like the presence was missed.
Right. And I'm looking for Bruce and Nicole and Lamar and the Matthews and everyone, and they're not there anymore. And I'm like, okay, it's me and Doug now. And honestly, that the hardest part of the case was that last, 6 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, when it was just Doug and I, because all that division of labor, people are still willing to help, of course, but they can't really do it if they're not in court. They don't really know what's going on. They have to worry about their other cases now. So a lot of it fell on myself, and a lot of it fell on Doug. And so those were long nights, because now it was just two of us and Mr. Botts, three of us. Taking on the state.
Whereas
and
before
all their resources.
Yes, that's right. Because they do have a tremendous amount of resources. There were a ton of people at the
Right.
prosecutor's table that could easily go out and look something up or easily pull up case law in Westlaw or Lexis or whatever they needed to do, or jump into the other system and pull documents. So
Right,
that's
and
actually,
it was actually very, very difficult for me because my organizational skills aren't the best, and I'm not saying the state was doing this intentionally, but,
Mhm.
like, when we're talking about redacting things, there were, like,
Oh God, yes.
so many
I
different
remember that.
versions. There were so many different versions, and
Yeah.
all it was just impossible to keep track of in this email chains what was
Mhm.
going on, and it was a little
Track
scary. I
changes,
was like, "I
version
hope I got
1,
this right."
version 2, yep,
Right.
the box, like, making sure the current items were uploaded. So I can only imagine, I can only imagine. Coming back to Shannon, what are the next steps with Shannon? I know he is super excited with the outcome, probably really ready to come back home to his family. What do the next steps look like for him?
So I'm happy to announce that it appears that we have a resolution in his other. He has 3 open matters that were other than this case. So he had
Wow.
3 other cases. Believe that we have a resolution. Um, I think we squared that away today. So Shannon, you know, hopefully, if everything goes as planned, will be released sometime soon.
Wow, that's awesome. Before Christmas?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
great
If everything goes as planned,
news.
that's the plan. Now, I'm not gonna say what his plans are because,
Mhm.
um, I want him to have that privacy.
Of course,
Um,
absolutely.
it's not lost on me that there's a long history with this case.
Yes.
It's not lost on me that how certain people still feel about things
Yeah,
despite the juror's verdict.
right.
Um, so the plan is that he will not be living in Atlanta. Um,
Okay. Yep,
and
that's smart.
and all I want from him, and we've had talks about this, and I'm going to continue to work with him. I know he's excited. We're all excited, but there's a certain level of humility that
Yeah.
I think being locked up for 2.5 years has to give you.
Mhm.
And it's not just Shannon, just for all my clients. I just wish I could just like bottle up that feeling in Rice Street and just
Oh,
say,
yeah.
hey, when you get out, just open this bottle just for 5 minutes every day to remind yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm just like I try to be humble, I'm trying to instill that and talk to Shannon about that and just take it slow.
Yeah.
Life is a marathon, and ultimately, if if things go sideways, we didn't really accomplish anything at the end. So but if things go right, this is a fairy tale story. This is beautiful. So
Yes, it
that's what we
is.
need to happen, and it's just a matter of trying to put him in the best position because it's going to be tough.
Yep. Perfect. Perfect. And Max, it is 1 p.m. Eastern. I have a few audience questions. Do you have a few more
I'm good.
minutes?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, perfect. All right, guys. So I'm going to come to our super chats. Some of you pre-submitted some questions. I did ask them as much as we could, taking advantage of the time, but I do want to come to some audience questions because we have quite a bit. Shout out to Carmen, who became a new member. Welcome, Carmen. You're going to love it here. Shout out to Harriet, who says, welcome, Mats. Congrats. Lots of
Thank you.
love in the chat today. Shout out to Love Nona Creation, says, please ask him, how does he feel about Shell Kel being released today? Did that happen?
I heard something about that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't keep up with Mr. Watts, but I'll say this. I don't have animosity towards anyone.
Yeah.
Um, there's a long history of
Mhm.
this story and this saga that the state talked about. And clearly, the jury has spoken, and I stand 100%, 1,000% behind Shannon's innocence. But clearly, people died.
Yes.
Um,
There were some
not
victims.
and Tierra Jones driving a car, she
Yes.
died.
Right. That was super
And
heartbreaking.
so clearly this needs to stop. And I'm not on anyone's side on these matters. I want I want Mr. Watts to go on and live a happy life and find peace. And if he called me today on the phone, I would chop it up with him and tell him I love him and I'm rooting for him. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's what I think a lot of people like about your personality, Max, is that you're very balanced. You don't pick sides, objective. And that's like an important trait for attorneys, especially like in the profession, because you never know if somebody's going to, in your case, work as a public defender, then move into defense or go to a different body of law, or if you meet them in another place throughout your professional experience,
right.
so it's very cool to hear that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Nona, for the question too. Let me see if I could grab a few more. Shout out to Granddad Gaming, who is in the UK. Yes, a lot of people from around the world have been watching this case. So shout out to the UK. It says evening from Manchester to the Three Goats AV Max in the chat. Thank you so much. Let's go to Sire. Sire says, ask Max about the alternate juror that said she was going to say guilty for SB based on the video. Great job, Max.
Thank you. I've heard about this interview. I haven't listened to the interview, but she was an alternate juror. So, I'm aware. I was very cognizant of who all the jurors were.
Okay.
She was an alternate. I knew, and we knew who the alternates were. And to be frank, on paper and just based on the vibes I was getting in the courtroom, my favorite juror was an alternate.
Wow.
So,
okay.
I understand that people are focusing on her, but I also felt that were alternates that were very strong for us. But that's just how it is. There's 12 jurors, and the 12 jurors deliberated, and they came to a conclusion, and the feelings of the alternates is of no consequence at this point. So
there we go. We love it. Thank you so much, Sire, for the question. Coming to Michelle, says, AV, let Max know that the hug was felt around the world. I look at all the defense team as the FedEx video actually shows the flash in the third car. We were talking about the muzzle flash that we didn't see, right?
Right.
How would a muzzle flash, just this is me just being curious, how would a muzzle flash make a difference if we did see it in the video?
Well, that would clear up a lot of things, and I know that people were sending me enhanced videos, and
yes,
I'm not going to say whether I did or didn't, but everyone can just think about how serious I took this case and ask themselves if I sought to get the video enhanced, and there's your answer. But I also had people enhancing it themselves and sending it to me. Honestly, I couldn't, and people were saying you could see a muzzle flash with the fourth car. I honestly couldn't see a muzzle flash. I certainly couldn't see one with Shannon next to it, but I honestly couldn't see one with the fourth car either. In the video, and people were saying it's right there. And the thing about it is, if you got to be, when you're saying things like that, you have to be certain in front of the jury, because if you're saying, look, there's a muzzle flash, and then the jurors are like, what is he talking about? Then that hurts your credibility for everything else that you're trying to talk to the jury about. So I think in my closing, I was aware that people claimed to see a muzzle flash from that fourth car. I just said, and then y'all can look at the video as many times as you want and look for muzzle flashes. And if you see some, great. If you don't, great. But I said, but I'll tell you one thing, you won't see any when Shannon's car is next.
I remember you saying that. That's right.
So I kind of left it up to them if they want to look and squint and say, I did see little light, but I couldn't with a straight face say, oh, that's definitively a muzzle flash. So I kind of left it in their hands if they want to come to that conclusion.
Yeah, that was brilliant. It really was, because then it puts it back to them and then, kind of takes the controversy off of it. Because there were some things like Doug was talking about the watch the other day and how that
Right.
kind of stuck with the jury because they came back with the question about the watch, so.
And that's a difference of style because
Yeah.
I was so focused. Doug, once we were dealing with the 2022 murder, like Doug didn't really have a lot going on because Yak wasn't accused of that.
Right.
So
Exactly.
So I said, Doug, if you feel strong about this watch thing, go for it. But I'm not getting involved in it. Because I got so much other stuff that I'm focusing on.
Right.
But B, I'm not a false accused. Like I don't like to say people did things if I'm not 100%. So I didn't want to hurt my credibility by saying, oh, so-and-so took the watch.
Yeah.
But it worked out fine. But that just really wasn't something that I was that wasn't a battle I was necessarily looking to fight.
Yeah, 100%. Michelle, thank you so much for your question. Coming to Majin with the 5 says, since this verdict after the adrenaline is done, how hard has he slept? I can't imagine the crash after this weight is lifted after so long. Are we getting some sleep, Max? Are we going to get some sleep?
It's not really more, because I have so many clients that need me now because I've been out of commission for so long. Now, I will say just it's not about sleep. Everywhere I walked for at least the last year, in the back of my mind, this case was present. So, even if I'm doing something that's fun or I'm going to a baseball game or a basketball game, I'm still thinking about it and my brain is still going through scenarios. I can finally close that chapter and start fixating on other things, I guess.
Got it. Thank you, Machine, for the question. Some of these guys I'm going to skip because we have gone through them. Shout out to Leslie with the 10. Leslie says, is Shannon aware of the diversity of people rooting for him? It looks like Leslie is a 45-year-old white female who's a 3rd grade teacher, and those men were my 22 years of babies that I fought for daily. When he gets settled, he needs to mentor.
He's aware of the support. He's aware of the diversity of support. It was funny. Shannon, and he was and we did watch. So we watched like Law and Crime.
Yeah.
I didn't the feed, and I didn't so much like watching it all the time because everyone was on our side, and I wanted to see what the people that were against us were focused on. So I knew what we needed. I didn't need. It feels good to have cheerleaders, but I needed to know what the other side, the other perspective, and what I needed to address. But Shannon, he's just a big believer in like vibes. So when things got negative, he didn't like to even see the chat. And then when it was positive, that's what he wanted to see. So we sometimes.
Trust me, I know. As a streamer,
turn it off. And I was like,
exactly.
And this is the part I want to see where people are saying, I want to hear why they're saying the case isn't going well, but he didn't want to see that. So that was just a difference in personalities.
100%. Yeah. As a trial streamer myself, totally get it. Like there are times where it's just like, just don't look at it. Because like chat can be crazy sometimes, especially with the color selection of suits. I'll leave it there. But thank you so much, Leslie. Coming to Sassy, who says, Rico was a scheme with zero evidence. Can Willis and Love be disbarred? I mean, I don't know. I think that goes a little far, Sassy. We've had some different conversations about the DA's office and what disbarment means. So I'll kind of answer that one.
Yeah, thank you. I'll say this. I know that the public feels strongly about this. There are people on the prosecution team that are very good people. Adam Abate is someone that has done multiple nice, kind things for people that needed someone to take care of it. So
Mhm.
prosecutors that are willing to help are very powerful people and can do a lot of good. And, Mr. Atkins is someone that, I mean, he was in the trial division before being brought into this case, and he's an absolute sweetheart. No matter, and I mean that as a compliment, no matter what my clients have been accused of, he's always treated them as people. Miss Hilton is a strong prosecutor, and I don't think she would disagree with that, but she's a pleasant person, and I think she tries to do what's right. So I just, there's good people, and it's just this was a very charged case, but I just
Mhm.
don't want, I hate to see people that are trying to do good kind of just get lumped into it, and people are
Yeah.
saying, oh, they're evil for this or that, because that's really not the case with the vast majority of people in this profession.
Yeah, exactly. And we've had conversations about Rico on this channel and how, like, even oddly, like I've kind of looked at some national things, like the Diddy case has Rico in it. Drake the other day, with his case against the UMG for Kendrick Lamar song,
Uh-huh.
that had civil Rico in it, and it just seems
Right.
to be a little bit more popular.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
I don't, when I'm sticking up for the prosecutors
yeah.
as individuals, I'm not sticking up for Rico.
Okay.
I don't think that this should have been a Rico case.
Yes, we've been looking for Rico for quite some
And
time.
and quite honestly, as it applies to Shannon, for
Yes.
instance, what
Yeah.
Rico did is it allowed the state. Typically, if say you're charged with two murders like Shannon, you would have a
Hmm.
trial on one murder and then a trial on the other murder. Now, there's certain circumstances where evidence from one can get into the other, but typically you're not, the bad character evidence from one would not come into the other. So, but what Rico does is it kind of takes away all those rules.
Hmm.
And so we ended up being in a difficult position, of starting a case being charged with two separate and distinct murders, which
Right.
is not, if we're being honest, that's not typically the ideal way to start a
Yeah, you wanna
case
do it,
as
like,
a
one by
defense
one.
attorney. Right.
Mhm, mhm.
So, and then Rico lets in all these other acts. So there
Right.
was just a lot of mud that got into this case that without Rico wouldn't have been allowed.
100%, 100%. We're gonna take a few more. Thank you so much, Sassy. You have a few questions, so I'm gonna give, other people an opportunity to ask some questions. Shout out to the commonly uncommon one with the 10 says, "Max, how did you feel when Detective Viverito said that she would have still submitted the subpoena the same way?"
I did not anticipate that answer, and that's part of, I guess, just being prepared and trying to be quick on your feet. But I mean, I kind of said to the jury what I felt. Um, what started out as a mistake, potentially a mistake, a very forgivable mistake. Okay, you misinterpreted words. But then when you say you would do it again, then it kind of took a little different. It looked a little different at that point, and it looked like things might be, more personal than just a mistake. And I think the jurors saw that. I've seen some of the jurors' reactions to the um, the gang experts in general, and that's what I thought of it. It was something that I think ultimately, was beneficial to the defense.
100%. 100%. Well, thank you, commonly uncommon. I'm going to do one more and then we will release the hostage. Let's go to Michael Lawless with the 5 here. Michael says, not specifics, but how do you bill for a case like this? Can it be it can't be hourly, can it? And fixed fee for 2 years consuming a firm. What are the mechanics?
So in criminal law, different types of law have different fee schedules and the way they're billed. And like if you're at a law firm, you bill hourly at a
Mhm.
certain rate. If you're like in personal injury, car accident, something like that, it's usually a contingency where you get like 35% of whatever the award is. In criminal law, contingencies aren't allowed. I guess you can bill hourly, but that's really not the most effective way to do things. So you just give a flat rate. Some attorneys will give a flat rate and then an extra fee if the case goes to trial, or even gets close to trial to the point that you have to do like legitimate trial prep. But then a lot of times you always do a flat fee. Typically, I always just do a flat fee. I don't want my clients to feel like, okay, I should really go to trial, but I can't afford that extra trial fee. So I usually just do a flat fee.
There we go. There we go. And before we end, Max, this is my last question. I like to end these interviews with this question. YSL trial in one word.
Can I do a hyphen, 2 words hyphen?
Yes. Doug gave me 2 the other day, so you're more than welcome.
Eye-opening.
Okay. We're getting some good answers. I think Nicole's answer was wrong. I forget Angela's answer, but it's just good to hear from all of you guys because I like to compile it all together as a collective,
I love it. I love it when, I'm blessed to have my parents still with me in a great relationship with my parents. And, I talk to them and, my dad, they're not lawyers. They know nothing about the law. And so I say certain things to them and they're like, yeah, we, okay, Max, you're on your rant again. And then like just talking to them because they started following the case.
Oh, wow.
One of my cousins, my younger cousins at a family cookout, they live up north. And they said something about Gunna being released. This is right in the beginning of the case.
Oh, wow.
My dad said, yeah, your cousin said something about you got some Gumta or something. Gumta.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, well, first of all, he wasn't my client. But secondly, I think you're referring to Gunna.
Oh, that's funny.
And so at that point, he started paying attention to the case. And, he was like a good barometer of the public. Like, and he was kind of like, oh, it was like, oh, that stuff that you're always talking about and ranting about, like, okay, I kind of see what you're talking about now. Oh, I get it now. So I think it was eye-opening. A lot of the little things that maybe attorneys might know.
Yep. 100%.
It was eye-opening to the public.
Yeah, it totally was. So, Max, I do have a large following in Atlanta, and sometimes people are looking for advice, legal support. If people were looking for you, if they want to hire you, where can they find you?
MaxSchardt.com.
There we go.
Even though I cuss myself out about this and my colleagues say I'm crazy, if you go on my website and you get the phone number off the website and you call it, it actually rings on my cell phone.
Oh my God.
And if you email me, the email actually comes to me.
Wow.
I run a kind of a very tight ship and I like to have contact with people. So, and personal contact. So that's how you reach.
Okay. That's good to know, just because like sometimes people route them my way if they actually have legal questions. I'm not barred in Georgia, so it's just good for them to know if they do want to reach out, what their resources are like.
Yeah, and if it's just a general question about the law or something like that, and it's not like a pending case or anything, just my email's on the website and just email me and I'll do my best to respond.
Awesome. And then what about your socials? Where can people follow you?
Oh, I don't even know mine. I'm on Twitter. I think it's like the Twitter's interesting because I set up something like @NotGuiltyATL like 12 years ago and I never used it. And then I set up another one, which is just like @Max Schardt. Goddard's my middle name. 13 or something.
One of our mods will grab it. If you guys,
you can find it, and that's on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram. I think it's like Max Schardt Law, and Doug keeps trying to get me on TikTok.
He's over there.
My wife's on TikTok too, so I'm like,
yeah.
okay, maybe I should be on TikTok.
Listen, you're not the only one. I'm literally hiring a person to like set up our TikTok. Right?
I know nothing about any of this. And a lot of this is Shaq. Shaq's doing. And this is the other thing I want to say. If you're on Instagram and you see something that it doesn't quite sound like Max, like it's a little bit more braggadocious or a little bit more out there, that means Shaq wrote it.
Okay.
And it also means he posted it without checking with me first.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Well, Max, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Again, I think your performance in this trial was exemplary, and you just did a great job, not only for Shannon, but supporting the other teammates that you had. All of you guys are brilliant attorneys, like being able to see Bruce and his epic experience, Brian, go toe to toe for justice, and his client. It's just, you guys are all an inspiration. So I wanted to give you your flowers and thank you for the wonderful job you did. And, of course, I hope that we can stay in touch and do this again sometime.
If I'm ever blessed to be involved in the case again, that people want to talk to me about it, I'm always available to you, AV, and I appreciate you, and just keep moving forward in love.
Will do. Thanks, Max. Have a good one.
Take care.
All right, bye. All right, guys. So this was so cool. Another interview in the books. I want to thank so many of you guys, and we're going to hang out for a few more minutes because I do have a ton of super chats to read. Some of the questions that you guys were asking were questions that I had already asked him, so we didn't want to make it duplicative. Also give everybody a fair shot to have an opportunity to ask questions. Personally, Max is my favorite attorney on the case. I think all of them are unique and special in their own ways, but particularly in cross-examination, if I were to be back in law school and wanted to learn from someone, I think he just did a phenomenal job and knocked it out of the park. Like, you guys saw my face when Little Mike and Quest were not real people. I think I was typing. I was like, can you believe that? Crazy. So let's bring it up to the top. Shout out to Carmen, who became a new member. Welcome, Carmen. You are going to love it here. Harriet, thanks again for shouting out Max and welcoming him. This is such an amazing community. I love that you guys treat our guests with respect. We do have another interview tomorrow. I'll talk about that in a second. So you're going to want to make sure you stay tuned to figure out who's coming on. Nona, we got your question. D says, go mad, Max Schardt. Granddad Gaming, I think we caught that one. Leslie with the 10, no comment, no question, pure love of the game. Thank you so much, Leslie. Shout out to Pam. Pam gifts you guys 20 AV memberships, growing our community, growing the little channel that could. That's what we're here to do, work together to make a safe space, a place where people can learn about the law and also see how it applies in your day-to-day life. Thank you so much, Pam, for growing the community and gifting our memberships. And that's a significant amount. If you guys could do me a favor and type Pam in the chat, that would be huge. Sire, we did get your question. That was a good one. Thank you for asking that one. Michelle, our love, she is here. Thank you for that one. I caught that one as well. Full drinking and half tinking. Full drinking and half tinking, Trin. I'm getting the, I don't know if that's a good accent there, but I'm trying to get the Trini accent. There was a woman, I was thinking about you the other day. There's a woman that I used to work with. She was from Trinidad and Tobago, and I loved her accent. Her name was Patricia, and we used to call her Patty. And she used to cook the best food and bring it in for lunch. So shout out to Trent from Full Drinking and Half Thinking. If any of the mods are around, this is a content creator. You want to talk about life, manhood, those sorts of things, please check out their channel. It's a panel of 3 people. It is amazing over there. Shout out to Nicole W, who dropped a super sticker. Thank you, Nicole. Very, very sweet of you. Shout out to Lisa Snipes, who gifted a membership. Thank you, Lisa, for helping us grow the community. In fact, I want to give a huge shout out to my members because you guys helped me craft these questions for each of our interviews that we're doing. I'll just say it now. We do have Thugger Daily coming on tomorrow. So I asked you guys, what questions you had for Thugger Daily. There's still some time. So if you just got gifted a membership, go to my community tab. It's members only. If you have questions for Thugger Daily, submit them tonight so I can send it to him in advance. Thank you so much. Lisa, Love Nona Creations with the 10 says, don't ask the question I asked earlier, please. The state is messy. Oh, sorry, sis. I wish I saw this before because these come in line. So, I mean, he did answer it. So we have it. But thank you so much. Shout out to Steady B89 with the 2 says, when will Shannon possibly be released? And I don't know if you guys heard, Max. I think he dropped that exclusive that they got his matters resolved today. So it seems like we will see Shannon home before Christmas. So really, really exciting news there. Shout out to Night of Knee with a 5 and a face. It says the wheel and Miss Loves and Fanny's heads are spinning, but the hamsters are clearly dead. Interesting. Little artwork there too. So thank you so much, Night of an Eye. Majine, I think that we got this one. Thank you for that one. Shout out to Octavia with the 2 says, Max, thank you for a job well done. Y'all have been super supportive this whole time. I'm going to share these sentiments and these comments, such positive feedback. So thank you so much, Octavia. Shout out to Nina with the CF. Where's that? Czech Republic? Country currency, CHF. Swiss francs. Wow. Switzerland is in the building. Says, did Mr. Steele really don't talk to Miss Love at all? How does this work if you have to try a case? Yeah, there were certain questions I just wanted to stay away from, Nina, but I will, we'll see if we could follow up on that one. Brian's an amazing attorney, but you guys saw that he went through a few things with the state in this case. So at the same time, we want to be respectful of that. Shout out to Gloria with the 5. Gloria says, is Shannon married? And if so, to whom is he married? Listen, when I asked you guys for questions, you know how many of you were like, can you verify or where's it at?
AV, can you get him to verify if he is married to Kayla?
You could see that, Max has a huge regard for Shannon's personal life. And here's the other thing. It's good to know that he's not going to be in Atlanta, but when people are released from jail, there's some safety concerns as well, right? So, we, as much as we're interested into his privacy, we want to think about that. Shout out to Monica, who became a new member. Welcome, Monica. You're going to love it here. Let me know what questions you have for Thugger Daily. Let us know. Now that you're a member, you can participate in that. Shout out to Leslie with the 10. I did read this one to him, Leslie, so thank you so much for your question. Muffin with the 2 says, Max has swag. Love you guys. Great job, AV. Thank you so much. We love you right back, Muffin. Thank you. I see the Cowboys there. Are you in Texas? Shout out to Sassy Fraz with a couple questions. Says, most corrupt trial ever seen, YSL trial. Shame on those in Fulton County. Yeah, it's pretty intense. Nina's back with more Swiss francs. Says, was the arrest of Zachary for testifying illegal? I don't believe that it was. It seems a little immoral, but it was not illegal. It was by the book. He did sign a deal where he agreed to testify whenever the state needed him. And although, he's going through his health issues, they, I think, issued a warrant, and then they got him arrested. Then he went to jail and was transported back and forth to the hospital. They cleared it with their doctors, but it was unfortunately legal. Shout out to High Value Man, your stream sponsor. Good to see you, HVM. Thank you so much. I did see this when it came in. If y'all could type HVM in the chat right now, let's give him his flowers. I was literally thinking about you yesterday. He says, great to see you on the channel, Max, and congrats to you and your client. High Value Man, one of the strongest supporters that supports this channel this year, has always been here to, carry things on, carry the torch, make sure that the growth is still happening. HVM, thank you from the bottom of my heart. This is one of those special streams. This is probably one of my favorite streams of the year. So the fact that you are sponsoring it means a lot. Sassy Frass back with another 5 says Rico was a scheme with zero evidence. Yep, we did talk about this one. We got that one, Sassy. Shout out to Profit with the 5 says Max, who got the watch. We did talk about that a little bit more as well. I think really, if you're looking for the answer, go back to the stream I just did with Doug 2 days ago, and we had a conversation about the watch and how it came up. It was really a tactic, right? So, but the jury came back with questions. They sure did. Moving on to Nina. Nina says, with more Swiss francs, says, Max, were you aware that the jury didn't have a copy of the indictments? They didn't know who was charged with what crime until the end. Thoughts? Yeah, so Nina, I caught one of your questions, so I did skip this one, but Max and I are in communication, so I can get the answer to that question for you. Sassy back with another 5 says, Glanville was a disgrace trying to arrest a defense attorney over a secret meeting. Can people of Georgia move to have him removed from the bench? Not the people, so to speak. I mean, the only way you can really do that is when it comes time to voting. Vote in the opposite way. Now, it did come with some things that helped, meaning that, Brian Steele had some affiliation with GACTL, the Georgia Criminal Defense Attorneys Group, or that Ashley Merchant is the president of, and Ashley Merchant was his attorney. Of course, they filed motions. They went to the Court of Appeals, and then it went up to the Georgia Supreme Court. And we did get an answer from the Georgia Supreme Court that Judge Glanville's handling of that particular matter was improper. So we did get some information there. Sassy is back with another 5, says, thank God for the jury who had good sense to see, then act. That's right. Full drinking and half Ting Ken with the 10 says, Max, you and the defense performed like thorough, consummate professionals, pure class. When y'all had to turn up, y'all did. Stark difference from the state's behavior. I believe that helped y'all a lot. I would concur. Shout out to Anthony. Haven't seen you in a long time, Anthony, with the 50. Thank you so much. Super generous of you. It says 14A. I don't know what that means, Anthony, but really, really appreciate the generous super chat here. Very, very nice of you. Rev It Up, Go, Roro has been a member for a month. It says AV is fire. Go, Max, go. Did Love pass the Brady video? Yeah, I don't know. I think there wasn't like a test for it. I think it was just required by the judge. Shout out to the commonly uncommon. We caught this one. Says, Max, how did you feel? We did get that one. Shout out to Sassy with the 5. Says, feel so bad for those in the Fulton County Jail. Each of them deserved immediate case review after watching how FC works. That is right. A lot of people agree with you. Shout out to Allie B from Tennessee with the 20. Says, I think one of my favorite days of the trial was watching Max during the direct exam of Burrito, aka Vivarito, the smirks, the head nods, the fist pumps with Kokomo, etc. We knew you were ready to cross and lay down the hammer. Yes, he was prepared. And it's also good to hear how his preparation starts, what the process is like. Attorneys prepare for that well in advance. So thank you so much, Allie B from Tennessee. Shout out to Full Drinking and Have Thinking, who gifted 5 AV memberships. Thank you, Trin. Thank you for growing the community. We appreciate that. H.H. Holmes with the 2 says, AV, you should compare notes with Max about the bar. Yes, yeah. And here's the thing. I really enjoy that Max is passionate about law students and shouted out all of the people that actually prepared for this case that were not barred attorneys. A lot of them were law students or people that are at the very, very start of their legal education career. So super cool. But thank you so much, H.H.I. Holmes. Shout out to Sassy with the 10 says, is Fulton County Jail for a for-profit jail? Many are including prisons. Yeah, and Sassy, hang on to some of these questions because next week I have somebody coming in who has been really advocating and is very, very close to the situation in the Fulton County Jail. I believe that's scheduled for Tuesday, so stay tuned. Save all those questions for them because we will get them answered. Shout out to MT, who I like to commonly think is Moontunk with the 5, says, at Max, how big is 8 terabytes of evidence? And did you have to upgrade your computers to even properly go through? Well, it does sound like Max had a tremendous amount of help with different people that have been helping out in the case. Shaq Kokomo, good example of that, and a few others that have been helping out from different offices to parse through all of that evidence and go from there. Anthony back with another 2 says, the infamous number 3 suspect car. Will the DA look for it? We did talk about that one a little bit too. Nina with the Swiss francs with the 2 says, why did no one object to Sprinkle using his laptop? I believe that Brian did. I believe that he did, if I remember correctly. Chi-Town with the 10 says, thank you, Max, for your hard work, humility, professionalism, slats. Yes, Thank you so much, Chi-Town, another huge supporter on the channel. Scozart's been a member for 3 months. Thank you for your time with me, Scozart. If you have a question for Thugger Daily, drop it in the community tab. Shout out to Jojo JLD with it 10 Canadian bucks. It's a super sticker. Thank you so much for that one. Really appreciate you. Forever, for always, for life with the 5 says, did any of the experts go through DOBAR to be certified as experts? This was a good question. I wish I saw it. This is a very, very good one. For always, forever, for life. I don't know if they needed to go through it in order to be certified as an expert, but there's a specific way that you qualify an expert to be certified. And if you remember correctly, whenever these experts come in, and most of the time they came up through the state. So the state had to ask them questions about their background, their experience, and their training. There's, you know, I show you guys the federal rules of evidence all the time. I don't know if I have it handy. It might be buried in this desk. But that booklet that I show you, the blue one, there are specific rules on what attorneys have to do to qualify them as experts. And then the judge qualifies them and they are allowed to participate in the case. Shout out to Para CZ23 with the 2. No comment, no question, pure love of the game. Ace became a member. Ace, were you not a member? Were you not a member? But it's good to have you here, Ace. Welcome to the community. Sire with the 2 says, does Max's prices go up after a trial like this? And Sire, you had one that was very similar to, I believe, Michael Lawless right after. That was talking about billables. So hopefully he's answered you guys' questions. It sounds like Max does a flat fee and then kind of adjusts as they move forward. Shout out to Bam Bam Lynch with the 5 says, I own a nonprofit in North Carolina, a boxing gym for at-risk youth, teaching work ethic to keep them out of trouble. Any suggestions on how to get donations? Yeah, you know, I always encourage people to look into getting on social media and having a business page for your business and kind of building it from there. And that means you can start a business with, I don't know, like let's say you're a dog groomer. You start with posting relevant things about dog grooming, and then you start promoting your business so people can come out and see you, and you can put like little drives, campaigns, and things like that. But great question, Bam Bam Lynch. Shout out to Penny Pendergrass, who's been a member for 3 months, says, what up, no Max from Penny Pendergrass. Penny, was so good to talk to you the other day. The echo is gone, so you can finally come up, no echo, and come up anytime. Michelle back with another 2 says, I wanted to add that the whole defense teams are heroes. Yes, I have let them know. You know, I've let all of them know if they're coming on, what to expect and how much you guys have love for them. So thank you so much, Michelle. Ace with the 20 says, AV, you're absolute treasure. Thank you to Max, to you and YSL Max for leading and teaching us throughout this trial. We laughed together. We cried together. Now it's time to celebrate together. I love that. Thank you so much, Ace. Nikki gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Nikki, for growing our community. I love it. Thank you so much, sis. You're going to love it here. You're already a part of it, but the fact that you're growing it is fantastic. Shout out to Anthony with the 2 says, Max, favorite expression for a shirt. Oh, that was a good one. That was a good one. That was a real good one, Anthony, but we'll get that one in the future. Angie has been a member for 5 months, says, one more time for the road. Hi, I'm Max Schardt. That would have been good. Nikki dropped the super sticker. Thank you so much, sis. Just Lee with the 10 says, great interview, AV. Wishing you more blessings. I'm getting good. I'm getting good at this. I'm getting better at it. I'm practicing my little interviewing chops, you know, like I'm in there, you know, we're getting my little form, good form. I'm getting all of it down. Thank you so much, Just Lee. Happy Bird, good to see you with the 5 says, just came to say great interview. And AV, you are so beautiful. Sis, I will take it. Thank you so much. And you are beautiful too. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for stopping by. And then shout out to Full Drinking and Half Thinking, who gifted 5 more memberships. Last one. Anthony with the 5 says 14th Amendment. Okay, I was like 14A. I was like, what is that? 14th Amendment on full display because of the good of the defense, fair judge, and public support. Yes, that was fantastic. Coming over to our Cash App crew, who do we have over here? A few folks. I do want to start off. Oh my God, we have 2 stream sponsors. Before the stream started, shout out to Diane, who sent me a $50 Cash App. She says, thanks for all you do. Diane, thank you so much. Very, very sweet of you and super generous. Shout out to Michael Love, who is your stream sponsor. He says he sends $120 and says last YSL dinner, steak, potatoes, greens, and red wine. If y'all could type Michael Love in the chat, along with High Value Men, he is your stream sponsor. Michael Love means a lot to me because throughout this trial, there have been long days. Me and Lead used to stream for hours at on in. I think the longest one we did was about 12 hours, and I had did the 12 and he had done like 11. But you know, there have been times where I've streamed on my side and on his side. These are long days, and guess what? Your girl forgot to eat. Michael Love kept reminding me in super chats and was just like, AV, please go eat. And because you're so busy, I'm letting you know what to eat. So that actually made it super easy. And to prove that I was actually eating, I would put it on my Instagram afterwards. So thank you, Michael Love, for all the nutritional support. I appreciate that. Variant, one of our mods, has become a new member. Thank you, Variant, and thank you for all the support throughout this trial. Shout out to Mango Gelato with the 20, says great job interviewing Attorney Schardt, and you are on my to-do list, Mango Gelato. I still owe you something, so thank you so much for that one. Real Talk with Retta with the 5 says, I am so godly proud of you. You rock with a rock emoji. Thank you so much, sis. You are the best. I appreciate all the support. And then we cannot end without one of my favorite people, Polish Lucy from Trainwreck Entertainment, drops a $25 Cash App. All right, ladies and germs, I am going back to the production side of the house today. We will probably clip some of this up so you have some bite-sized pieces if you're in a rush and just want to watch the shorter version of the interview. If you want to find Max, we're going to put all of his social medias, all the links, his email, the things that he talked about in the description box of this video and moving forward. Tomorrow, we have Thugger Daily. So if you are a member on this channel, write your questions in for Thugger Daily. If you submitted it before the stream, I already have the ones that y'all submitted. But if you have a particular question for him, let me know. Monday, Ashley Merchant. Okay, that's a big deal. I cannot wait to talk to her. It's going to be fantastic. There's more in the works. We're not going anywhere. There's other trials. There's other legal shenanigans happening out there that we need to stay on top of, and we will be covering. Of course, we're doing the Karen Reed series, so December is going to be a busy month. You build it as you fly it, and the work that we do here is going to continue. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Bye.